This is Tara McGinnis, and this is Theatrical Makeup Design Interactive. If you're doing bite marks, chances are you're doing production of Dracula. Now, Dracula has a number of special effects depending on the production, and one of them that you will find in a number of play versions is what I call the sacred wafer trick. That is to say, the sacred wafer, where Dr. Van Helsing, who always has a heavy European accent and therefore pronounces wafer, takes a consecrated host, a holy host, a sacred wafer, and applies it to the forehead of either Lucy or Mina, depending on your production. Whichever hot babe is been bitten by Dracula, because he's going to bless her in order to purify her and make sure that Dracula keeps away. And so he blesses her with the Holy Host, but she has already been bitten by Dracula, and as a consequence, she shrieks and screams and grabs her forehead and finds that there's a burn mark where the sacred wafer has been. Now, there are two ways to do this. There's a nice simple way that you can do if you have a person playing Van Helsing who is very much on the ball. What you do is you take a nice little white disc that looks like it could be a holy host, a sacred wafer, and then on the other side you put just a little bit of sponge and a whole bunch of reddish makeup. And he goes and takes and applies it, and sure enough, it puts a red mark on the forehead that looks something like a burn. That's usually not too bad. The problem is, of course, that you have to get it absolutely right into the forehead, and he has to not flip that, and he can't, drop it and end up... There are many things that can be wrong with that, but it is actually the simplest way of doing the trick. As long as you have a Van Helsing who's really bright and can handle strange little props like that without, dropping them on stage so where it shows how the trick was done, you can probably do that. If, however, you would like to do something a little bit fancier and more impressive, there is another way you can go and do the same trick, and that's the one I'm going to show you. What you do is you start by going and putting red makeup in the center of Mina's forehead. Much like the red you have here, you're going to want to go and put a darker color on the outer part, possibly even some black. Graying this area. And a highlighter in the center that's more of a pinky color, so that when it is revealed, it has an uneven color like this same burn mark. Then you go and can do several things to make it less sticky. One of which is you can take either Vaseline or Vaseline Intensive Care Lotion or any other thing that is in the range of the greasy and gooey. And you put some greasy and gooey on that. Now I'm going to take the greasy and gooey off my fingers. Then you take a square of toilet tissue, which you have peeled down to a single layer, and you cut yourself a circle. Approximately the same size as your makeup. You press it into the goo and into the skin, and then you take a little more goo that over it. Oh boy, it's trying to tear. So I have to put a little extra piece. You don't want to put too much of the paper though, or when you're putting latex over this, it's going to look too lumpy. You want to go and have stuff on here that makes it so that the latex ultimately doesn't stick to the center part of the forehead very well. So you then take latex and brush for this. You paint thin, even, very smooth layers over this. No lumps, no bumps, perfectly smooth. And let that dry. A second layer, also done very smoothly. Now I'm going to apply a third layer. While the second layer was drying, just like I predicted, one of the bite marks fell off. Just so you know, it's true. The bites have a tendency to pop off when they're out of wax. Wax just doesn't stick well to the neck. Third and last coat. Okay, now the third coat has dried. Once the third coat has dried, you go and take a little bit of highlighter and put highlighter over the dark spot. Then you take your base color and put it over that, trying to, as much as possible, blend the whole thing into the forehead seamlessly so that it looks like it's just a plain, ordinary, happy, normal forehead. Try not to rub across this part, pat it down, lest you peel it off before it's supposed to be peeled off. Watch as Van Helsing is blessing dear Miss Mina with forehead. Goes and pushes it on there. She grabs this. In actual fact, she doesn't grab that at all. He pulls it away, or you can grab it, but then you have to figure out how you palm it. He pulls it away, she screams, and she grabs a portion of her forehead and goes, "Ah!" And you pull away the latex, and underneath you see this. And usually, if your writer has a particle of sense, very shortly thereafter the scene ends. And so you get this effect, this quick thing. And then she has a chance to go off and make it look even worse before her next scene. So she can go and peel it up and away a little bit so that there's little bits of fleshy stuff hanging down. And you can go and do a bit more, where you take more of the red, put it in, and more of the dull red, put it in. And above all, taking the brown, putting brown just underneath the edges. And a little highlighter on the outer edges. Same as you do over here. So that by the next act you have something that looks like this. But the first time you see it, all you see is suddenly there's this red on her forehead. So that is the sacred wafer trick.